When I was 11 years old, I became the victim of a sexual assault at school at the hands of a female teacher. My parents had never told me anything about sex, so I didn't know what it is that happened to me. And pretty much my innocence was stolen in that moment. I had also realized at the age of 11 that by then that my parents were the no police. Anything I wanted to do, the answer was always no. And I even joke in my talks that if I really wanted what I, if I wanted to get what I wanted to get, I should have told my parents that I wanted nothing but vegetables to eat. Because I hated vegetables as a kid, and since I wanted it, my parents would have said no. But I wasn't that smart. So at 12 years old, when the predators came into my life, they knew that if they gave me everything that I wanted, which were pretty cheap, like I wanted to live on potato chips and candy bars and pizza, that they gave me all that. They let me do whatever I wanted. They also told me that what happened to me when I was 11 was horrible and should have never happened to anyone. But now I could get my power back. Now I could have sex with anybody I wanted to. And if somebody wanted to do something with me and I didn't want to, I could say no. And there was nothing they could do about it. And I thought, I believe that big bag of lies that Satan gives you, that you can get your power back. We don't have power, but I'm 12 years old, what do I know? And they gave me an address to go to, and I went and I met 3 sisters. 2 were younger than me, and 1 was older than me, and they taught me how to have sex. And then at the end of the summer, because it took all summer for me to learn this and how to do everything just right, then I started shooting videos. When I was 12 years old, all my friends at school bragged about how much sex they were having. But looking back, I know that I went to school with a school full of virgins. They weren't really having sex. They just lied to make up stories and make everybody think they were amazing when they weren't. I was probably the only person in my age group. There were people in my satanic coven that were my age group, but they didn't go to school with me. So I'm having sex at least every weekend, and sometimes during the week. So I've got my parents still holding by their guns of, no, you can't have that, you can't do this, you can't eat this, doing their best to look out for me, but I'm not seeing it that way. And my parents never gave me an alternative. They never said, we're not going to do that, but let's do this instead. They just would shut me down. No, you're not doing that. And then I would go back to my coven and they would say, oh, sure, yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a fun movie. That'd be a fun concert to go to. That'd be a fun, that extra porn. Yeah, let's do that. Let's shoot some extra videos this weekend. I'm not realizing that I'm being re-victimized every time. I'm having sex with kids my age, sometimes younger, sometimes older, and adults. And I'm not thinking that, these people are taking advantage of me. They seem to be looking out for me and doing anything that I want to do. And the devil is clearly leading me astray, but at 13 years old, I agreed to sell my soul to the devil. Something you can't do. It's impossible to sell what you don't own. But prior to that, they told me there were 13 steps involved in becoming a Satanist, and that I'd done almost all of them already. I did find out later that one of those things they have you do is lie to your parents. So you get to break thou shalt not lie and honor your mother and father all at the same time. They whittled away at my innocence. They let me try my first cigarette, which, it may or may not be a sin to smoke, but you're disobeying your parents who did tell me not to ever smoke. So I was smoking cigarettes. They told me not to ever do drugs. Don't ever smoke marijuana. I was smoking marijuana. I was taking mushrooms and acid and MDMA and all kind of pills. Everything they told me not to do, I did. And noticed that because my dad would say that doing all these different drugs, if you did any of the drugs, they could kill you. Well, I found out that he was wrong, or he was lying to me, because none of the drugs ever made me sick. None of them killed me. You know, the food that I was not supposed to eat didn't seem to hurt me. You know, everything that, all the limitations that he put on me were apparently used to just kill my vibe, kill my fun. You know, and when you're a kid, you associate God with your parents. And in the Bible, there's just a long list of stuff you're not allowed to do. Don't do this, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. And then you've got my dad and my mom constantly telling me other thou shalt nots. So I'm thinking God is also the fun police. But you know, by the time I was 18 years old, I got out of porn. I aged out at 16. Because at 16 years old, I grew a mustache and I looked a little older. And they told me suddenly that nobody wants to see you perform anymore. You're too old. And I didn't transition into adult porn, but I was so jaded at that point. You know, I attempted suicide once when I was 13 and once when I was 17. And I started going to counseling when I was 19. I went for about a year and a half. And then at some point I told my parents about what happened to me when I was 11. And that woman had told me that if I ever told anybody that I would be in trouble, that I would be expelled from school, that I would go to prison because it was my idea, and that no one would believe me. And when I told my parents, they didn't believe me either. So it just confirmed what the woman had told me. So I went through a bit of depression in my 20s. I became the High Wizard, and as the High Wizard, it's a very selfish position. You do what you want, when you want to. Nobody can tell you what to do. If somebody decides to hire my coven for $1 million and pay me to do that spell, I don't have to do it. I can do anything I want to do.